Is this true? The day before yesterday, another news article about Huawei appeared online. I thought it would be an ordinary piece of news, but after reading the content, I realized that it was a significant development. According to Zhang Minggang, Deputy General Manager of Huawei France, Huawei's first overseas factory has been confirmed to land in France. Covering an area of about 8 hectares, it is expected to start production by the end of 2025. Huawei plans to invest €200 million in this project, with an annual output value of up to €1 billion, which promises a considerable return on investment and will create nearly 1,000 job opportunities. The factory is expected to produce 1 billion units of equipment per year, but it will not be manufacturing smartphones. Instead, it will produce components such as chips and motherboards required for 4G and 5G base stations, supplying the entire European market. Huawei does not currently have manufacturing facilities overseas, but this situation is about to change. As early as 2020, Huawei announced its plans to establish a factory in France. Due to well-known reasons, European countries have been moving away from Huawei in their 5G network deployments, and it has even been regarded as an eventuality for Huawei to exit the European market under pressure from the United States. Fortunately, European countries are not united on this matter. While they may make some noise in collaboration with the United States, business still needs to be done. China is France's third-largest trading partner, and 2024 marks the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and France. It must be said that Macron has a keen commercial sense. Zhang Minggang also revealed that Huawei plans to collaborate with the French Network Security Agency as part of this factory construction project, aiming to establish a real-time, transparent system to restore European countries' trust in Huawei. Huawei will also continue to work with 2 local operators in France to deploy 5G base stations. Through practical actions, Huawei is proving that it not only has no intention of exiting the European market, but is also increasing its investment efforts to make a comeback. Therefore, it seems that Huawei's largest overseas market in Europe is experiencing a turning point. The thunderous announcement of Huawei's factory in France signifies its official return to the overseas market, and has caused a sensation in the tech industry. The well-known US chip sanctions in the past were like an octopus wrapping Europe and even the entire globe, causing Huawei to lose its entire overseas business. Countries like the UK and Sweden have taken harsh actions against Huawei, wanting to get rid of its presence quickly. However, after Huawei's Korean chips made a breakthrough, the technical constraints imposed by the United States disappeared. This Chinese tech giant, which has risen from the ashes, is once again focusing on rebuilding its global market, recapturing what it had lost overseas according to reports. The overseas factory is located in the beautiful town of Bournemouth in the Alsace region of France. The factory covers an area of approximately 8 hectares, occupying about 80,000 square meters of vast land. In the future, it may be a place of bustling activity with machines humming. The factory's production capacity is astonishing, with a target of manufacturing up to 1 billion units of communication equipment per year. It will focus on producing components such as chips and motherboards required for 4G per 5G base stations, and these components will supply the entire European market. Behind this matter, there is also profound historical significance. After the visit of French President Macron to China this year, France, as the leader of Europe, actively initiated various cooperation with China and became a bridge for communication between us and the West. The construction of Huawei's overseas factories also signifies that various parties are joining hands to resist the technological hegemony from across the Pacific. Huawei's overseas factories will also bring significant benefits to the local area, including hundreds or thousands of job positions and an annual output value of €1 billion. There is a saying in China, One can judge a horse's strength by a long journey and a person's true character over time. So, how is Huawei really doing? European countries are voting with their actions. Huawei has been selling products such as base stations and smartphones in Europe for nearly 20 years, but it has been severely affected by the false claims of the US about national security. It seems that all countries have been clinging tightly to the United States and obediently removing a large number of Huawei devices in the past for years. However, now everyone is gradually realizing who is truly harming their national security. Therefore, many countries' actions against the tech hegemon can be seen as complying reluctantly. In the UK, the deadline for removing Huawei equipment has been continuously postponed, seemingly indefinitely. In Germany, it was leaked a few months ago that Germany would remove Huawei from the railway department's 5G network, but now the Schulz team keeps putting it on hold. In France, the construction of Huawei factories signifies the return of the Chinese people to the global stage. The new factory will mainly produce products for the European region, achieving comprehensive coverage of the end-to-end industrial chain, including research and development, sales, procurement, production, logistics, services, and talent cultivation. It will positively promote the local upstream and downstream industrial chains in Europe. The media previously pointed out that Huawei announced the establishment of its first European factory in France as early as 2019. After all, Europe was once Huawei's largest overseas market and was regarded by Ren Zhengfei as Huawei's second home. Huawei stated that by 2021, it had achieved €2.5 billion in sales in France, created nearly 10,000 job positions, and held a 20% share in the French telecommunications infrastructure market. Zhang Minggang stated that as of today, France is still one of the strongest countries in mathematics in Europe, with the best education system and advantages in rent. Despite facing sanctions in some countries and regions, Zhang Minggang stated that Huawei will continue to invest in France. Regarding Huawei's strategy in the automotive field, Zhang Minggang said that Huawei's ambition is not limited to China but global, and they hope to provide intelligence and innovation to all automakers. From the news, it was learned that this is Huawei's first overseas factory. What does first represent? It means that even during Huawei's heyday, before being blacklisted by the United States, although it had many businesses overseas, it had not established factories overseas. Now, the news that Huawei has established its first overseas factory in France not only announces a commercial move, but also represents an important milestone in Huawei's globalization strategy. This means that Huawei intends to return to the global market. The United States has been trying to coerce its allies to blacklist Huawei and contain China. But what is the result? The United States may seem aggressive and unconcerned, but the situation is not so optimistic for them. A country that has already largely deindustrialized is attempting to isolate China, which has an industrial added value surpassing that of the United States, Japan, and Germany from the global supply chain by coercing other suppliers. The result of trying to isolate Huawei from the industrial chain is the acceleration of the global de-Americanization of the industrial chain, and American businesses will likely be marginalized in the global industrial chain. From the existing conditions, the United States' action to contain Huawei is doomed to fail. Unless China does not care about Huawei, the United States cannot achieve its goal of destroying Huawei, and China cannot overlook Huawei. Therefore, the outcome of the new round of sanctions is already predetermined. The United States' way of blocking Huawei not only goes against globalization, but is also an unjust action. Although it may gain short-term advantages by relying on its current strength, in the long run, it will fail due to the law of antagonism and loss of principles. China's 5G base station quantity accounts for at least half of the world's, and Huawei's 5G market pressure will not be too great within 3 to 5 years. Huawei's 5G is its top priority as a backup plan, And it is also its product that is most difficult for the United States to restrict. After 3 to 5 years, the Chinese-led industrial chain will be de-Americanized, and the United States sanctions will no longer be effective. The United States' main goal of wanting to destroy Huawei is due to Huawei's 5G. Commercialization of China's 5G cannot be stopped, so how can Huawei's 5G business collapse? Therefore, the United States' main goal is doomed to fail. Although Huawei's smartphone and other businesses have been affected, the temporary setback can be endured. Moreover, with Huawei's company culture, there will not only be negative retreats. Huawei will reorganize its resources, and if it encounters obstacles in hardware, it will invest more resources in software, such as catching up in the smartphone operating system monopolized by Google and the database business dominated by Oracle. With Huawei's capabilities, it is not impossible to achieve brilliance in communication equipment and terminals in these areas that Huawei has already entered, even in the smartphone business, 2 or 3 years. Or even 3 to 5 years later, the brand value of Huawei will still be there and it will not be difficult for them to make a comeback. By then, Huawei will be even stronger, and its value to China will be even higher. Moreover, we should believe in Huawei, which formulated and implemented the backup plan more than a decade ago to cope with the US blockade. Huawei has made adequate preparations for the upgraded sanction measures imposed by the US. Huawei will not succumb to external pressure, and China will not lose to external forces. After repeated negative education from the United States, the debate over whether making is inferior to buying, that has plagued China for 40 years, suddenly lost its relevance. Compared to external containment, the internal forces of making is inferior to buying pose a more lethal threat to China. Once China unifies its ideological consciousness, it will quickly improve its industrial chain and fill in the gaps. As long as we do not lose confidence and take proactive actions, the danger and opportunity can be transformed. Isn't that the case for the current global public health crisis? At the beginning, the West hoped it would become China's Chernobyl incident, but because China responded actively, it quickly brought the situation under control. On the other hand, the West, who initially wanted to watch the show in China, has now become the epicenter and is in crisis. Their decline will accelerate. China has proven its institutional superiority, boosted the confidence of the Chinese people, reduced the probability of China facing subversive risks, and will make better use of its established relative advantages. The crisis will turn into an opportunity for China. We should believe in Huawei, believe in China, and remain vigilant against various forms of defeatist and surrender theories.